Hey, I'm Victoria, author, editor, and the owner of Blue Pen. One of the least fun parts of the editing process is proofreading. After you have spent so much time and energy writing and editing, revising, making sure the story is perfect, and then going through line by line and cleaning up the prose, one of the last things that you want to do is read through that manuscript yet again, and this time just looking for typos and punctuation errors. But it is better than the alternative of having a bunch of errors appear in your final version. Let's talk about a few ways to help you speed up this process and kind of automate a few of the quick formatting things that you need to look for that could otherwise eat up a fair amount of time. Let's get into it. First of all, you want to start with standard manuscript format. That's Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, double-spaced. If you check out our website, bluepenbooks.com, you'll see a little pop-up inviting you to send us your email address and get access to our resource library. If you do that, you will find a standard manuscript format template. Using the standard format is just going to make your work look so much more professional, whether you're submitting to agents, publishers, or sending it to a professional editor. Consistency is just so important there, especially when it comes to editing. And all of these things are just going to make your editor's life easier. The interior layout is going to be so much easier, and you're going to have less chance of issues winding up in the final version if you take care of all of this during proofreading. The easiest way to catch some of these formatting issues that we would look for during proofreading is going to be using find and replace. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with this in Microsoft Word. You just use Control F, Command F if you're on a Mac, and you can find one thing and replace it with something else all through the manuscript. It's magical. You've probably used it at some point to change a character's name. You know you have. Don't lie. But what we're going to do is we're going to go in and click that little down arrow there and check the box that says enable wildcards. Wildcards are going to take this to a whole new level. So running down the checklist, what can we use find and replace for when we are working on our proofread? One of the first things we can look for is double spaces. Oftentimes you'll see 2 spaces after a period. Because we are no longer living in typewriter days, this is no longer standard. So all you have to do is search 2 spaces, replace it with 1 space. That's it. You might want to run that a couple of times in case you have some triple spaces hanging around. Then we're going to start to get into our wildcards. Another thing that is not in standard manuscript format, manual tabs. So the little tab key, we don't use that. We set the hanging indent instead. Manual tabs cause all kinds of issues when you're going through and proofreading and formatting. So all we're going to do is search for the wildcard for that manual tab, and that is T. So caret is in the little up arrow, and then T. And we're going to replace that with nothing. So just make sure that second box is empty and then click replace all. Now let's find a few more spaces, shall we? I know I always wind up with extra spaces at the end of paragraphs. So to fix that, all you have to do is use the wildcard for a paragraph break, a hard line break, and that is going to be P. So to get rid of those extra spaces at the end of paragraphs, we're going to type in space and then P. And we're just going to replace that with P with no space. So remembering that P is the line break. So replacing space line break with just the line break. Go ahead and replace all. And then we can do the same thing, but catch the spaces at the beginning of paragraphs. So instead of doing space line break, we're going to search for line break space. So P space, and replace that with P. Another standard for manuscripts are smart quotes. And those are the curly quotes opposed to the straight quotes, which can also be called dumb quotes. Most of the time, smart quotes are default, but if they are not appearing by default, then you can change that setting. In Microsoft Word, you're going to go to your autocorrect settings and auto format as you type and select that box that says change straight quotes to smart quotes. Just a note, you might want to check out the blog post linked in the description box. It goes over all of this information, but it's laid out. I know some of this is kind of visual, so it might be easier to see rather than hear. So once you've changed that setting, then you can actually just search for a quotation mark and replace it with a quotation mark. You can do this for double quotes and single quotes, and it will automatically replace dumb quotes with smart quotes as long as that setting is enabled. Another thing that does not typically appear in manuscripts is bold. Now, of course, there are exceptions for everything. Hello, the invisible library. But think about how many books you've actually read that use bold, and you will see that that is not something that typically appears. We will generally use italics for emphasis rather than bold. So you can actually go into your Find and Replace and check out that box that says formatting, and you'll select bold in the find box, in the search box, and then going down to that replace with, you'll go to the formatting and select not bold. And you don't actually have to add any characters to those boxes. You'll leave them blank because you're just replacing the formatting. The last way that I like to use the Find and Replace is for placeholders. I know a lot of the time I'm drafting and I just can't get a word, or I can't remember a detail that I need to fact check later, but I don't want to stop and look it up right now because that's going to break my flow. I just want to keep writing. So what I use is brackets. I will put brackets around the word or the reminder, whatever it is that I need to look up later. I use brackets because there is no other reason for a bracket to appear in my manuscript. You might also use asterisks or anything that would not normally appear in your manuscript. Then later, you can just run a search for brackets or whatever you used and make sure that you caught all of those and actually replace them with the thing that was supposed to be there. Now, if you want to take all of this a step further, you can actually create a macro that will run all of this automatically. I like to run these checks before and after every proofreading pass just to make sure. And having a macro makes that so much easier. Now, I'm not going to go into how to do that here, but you can Google a bit about macros and start learning how to use that. Now, a few tips about how to proofread quickly and effectively. And I want to emphasize that the second part of that is so much more important than the first. While I know proofreading isn't the most fun, and we want to get through it as quickly as possible, it's also so important. You spent so long working on your manuscript, you don't want to leave a bunch of errors in at the end. So try to take your time. But here are a few things that I have found that help me proofread faster and or more. If you're able to keep the eye fatigue, the eye strain away longer, then you can proofread in longer periods of time and get it done more quickly. The ultimate eye saver for me, hands down, is night mode. Having the dark background and the light text is just so much easier on my eyes. I will also turn on night shift on my Mac, which makes the screen warmer, eliminating that blue light, those cooler colors. For me, that helps a lot. I also really, really like proofreading on a hard copy. Having the printed text, it's just easier on my eyes than a screen. Of course, you have to deal with printing costs with that, but you can run down to your local office supply store and it shouldn't cost too much to print a manuscript. I also find variation to be just a great tool for proofreading, whether you are proofreading on that printed copy or whether you're just switching things up. You might change the font size and make your text larger. You might try a different device, maybe switch to an e-reader. anything to kind of help you see the words in a new light, because we can get so used to the words on the page. They can become so familiar that our brain just fills in the blanks even when there's an error. Finally, my biggest tip for proofreading is to stop when you get fatigued. I know we all want to get finished quickly, so we want to just push through and say just a few more pages, but that is when the errors are going to slip through. So when you start getting mentally tired, when you start feeling that eye strain, just go ahead and put it up, take a rest, and come back when you're feeling refreshed. All right, those are my tips for proofreading. Again, for a bit more in-depth information on this, check out that blog post linked in the description. And when you're ready for professional editing, or if you decide to self-publish and need help with book design, get in touch with our team at Blue Pen. You can find us at bluepenbooks.com. And if you have any proofreading tips that I didn't mention, anything that works really well for you, let us know in the comments. That's it for now. See y'all next time.